Hi and welcome to another Dex from the Graphic Design School. My name is Leanne and today we're going to be using Adobe Dimension to create high quality photorealistic 3D images. Adobe Dimension makes it really easy for graphic designers to bring concepts to life and bring your designs to life. You're able to add backgrounds, edit the backgrounds, add different objects within your scenes, edit the materials on the objects, add shadows and reflections, and manipulate the lighting. It also allows you to preview your work before you go on to render your multi-layered Photoshop files, and then you're able to take those images into Photoshop and manipulate the objects and the materials using layer masks. So here you can see I've done something a little bit more unconventional with my packs and submerged them below the ground plane in this ocean of pink. I like this kind of different way of presenting your work, but if you want to do something a little bit more conventional, Adobe Dimension allows you to place it within a very normal scene to show what the packs would look like in real life. So adding labels or decals to your packs, changing colors of details within the packs, like I've changed the lid color. You can change the texture of the packs and change the lighting angles and the intensity of the lighting within your scene. Also showing how to see the pack on a different angle on a solid color background, or manipulating each pack separately, so you have this kind of floating effect for the three packs, and just something fun where you can add the background to your packs. So there's a lot of fun to be had in Adobe Dimension. So before we go there, I'm going to copy my labels into my library. So once you've copied something into the library, you can use it across all the Adobe programs. So I'm going to open up my library in Illustrator and then just select my label without any die cut lines. So I don't want anything that doesn't need to be printed, and then just drag it into my library. So it'll copy it across, and I'll just call it banana milk, and do the same with my berry. And then once I go into Adobe Dimension, I'll be able to add these as decals and labels and be able to wrap them around my objects. And finally, my almond milk. So perhaps you have got a label that you've created, or maybe just create something really simple, or even just a logo that you can apply to something in Adobe Dimension. So we'll go into Adobe Dimension. So just to familiarize yourself with what you see when you open it up, you'll see our tools are down the left and divided into three different sections. The top tools are where we manipulate the objects. So you have the select and move tool, just pressing V allows you to select it. The scaling tool, S, so obviously just scaling the objects within your scene. Select and rotate, so rotating around your objects. And then you have two tools here, the magic wand, W, and your sampler tool, I. So these are really if you want to manipulate materials within your scene. So you can magic wand across an area, change the size, add and select your magic wand size, and then sample a material from somewhere else and it will apply to that area. And then we have our camera angle. So this is really how you view your scene, rotating around your scene, your rotation tool, and they're really simple selection controls. So it's 1, 2, 3, 2 for your hand tool, so that's just panning left and right, up and down, and then your dolly tool, moving forwards and backwards, so closer and further away from your scene, and then your horizon tool where you can manipulate your horizon. Then we have our assets over here. Assets are really our objects that we can apply to our scene, our materials, and within this, these can be manipulated. So if you see a color here, it can be changed, its opacity, the pattern can be repeated. And then we have our lighting, so different lighting options, and our different scenes. So under each of these, there is also browse Adobe stock. So if you don't find the right scene, the right material, you can also browse, or you might want to find some different objects. But it is quite comprehensive comprehensive what you get within this. And then along the top here are your selection options, group selection, and then aligning to your scene. Just across here we have our zoom to fit selection. So if you have something selected within your scene, just click on that and it will zoom right into your object. You can save different camera angles, so if you get an angle that you like, you can save it there and come back to it later. And then this is where we render our final scene. On the right over here is our scene, our environment. Anything we add to our scene will go over here. Any actions that we can apply to that object will be over here. And the properties for that particular object or material can be manipulated here. So the properties of our lighting, you can see, is here already. But we're going to start with just adding in our wooden table. So just clicking on it underneath the images will add it to your scene. It will load it and then it will give you an option to match image. This is a good idea because we want our perspective to match this image. This image has got some lines in the wood, and Adobe Dimension can look at that image and match the perspective better. There we go. So you can see the perspective is working better. You can also change the size of this image under canvas over here. So if I just click on my link and I just want to change it to 2000, and it will add more to my height in proportion. So we have our scene and we have our lighting within our scene. So you can change the intensity of the lighting here too. But we're going to add our object. So I'm going to add my bottle, my square bottle. By clicking on an object, it adds it right to the middle of the scene. I'm going to want to move it forward and scale it down. So just selecting tool, you can see the widgets, the green, red and blue, they relate to the X, Y and Z, but I just want to scale it down in proportion. So if I click anywhere else, you can see they grey out, and I can just drag down and to the left and it will scale down. And then I'm going to go to my move tool and just start to move it. Oops, I want to move it forwards. Scale it down. So it grays out. I can scale it on X and Y, but I want to keep the proportions of the bottle, so I'm going to keep it. And move it forwards. Move it to the left. Move it more forwards. Scale it down in proportion, holding down shift. And there I have my bottle. So you can see under scene I have my square bottle. The lid, bottle and safety ring are individual. So if I open those up, you can see my lid material there. If I click on that, it will give me the color of the lid material. Same with the bottle and the safety ring. So they come standard in grey. I'm going to change my bottle to white. So just clicking on that and then dragging up to white will give me my white bottle. I might want to change the material on that. So maybe just a plastic. So clicking on plastic will apply it to my bottle, or I can just drag it across and it will apply it to my bottle. It's made it grey again, so I'll click on that, make it white. I can also change the translucency. Now the amazing thing with Adobe Dimension is if you just hover over the option, it will give you a little animated movie on what that option will really do to your image and give you some tips. So all of these are really amazing. It explains to you what it will do. Great. So I have my, my surface color as white. It's plastic. The lighting is a little bit dark, and you can notice that the lighting is different here. I want my lighting to match what's going on here with my pot. So I can go to my environment and look at the properties there. So I can intensify the environment light and make it a little bit lighter. Then go to your sunlight, and here is where you can rotate where the sun is falling. So I want my shadow to fall to the right, and also the sun is a little bit low, so I'm going to make it a little bit higher so it will shorten my drop shadow. If I look at my pack, it looks like it's floating. So if I go to my square bottle, you'll notice that my Y is not sitting on 0. So make that 0 so that your pack is sitting on the ground. And then we can go back to environment. You can intensify the lighting. If you look at the drop shadow, it looks a little bit dark. If you want to lighten your drop shadow, go to ground plane and then just drag your shadow opacity down a little bit. Great. I'm not going to change the color of the lid until I drag my label in. So we have our assets there. I'm just going to close up my assets so I can open up my Creative Cloud libraries. So then you will see that my labels will be sitting, the labels I carried across will be sitting there. So I'm just going to select my almond, and I should be able to click on it and drag it onto my bottle, and it will copy that decal onto my bottle. So onto the right, you can see it falls onto my bottle, and there is decal. So the round circle allows me to scale my label. The little dot over here allows me to rotate my label. So I just want to scale it up a little bit and then move it so it sits a little bit more centered. Just scale it up a little bit more. And I just take note of how much I'm scaling it up so I can match the other labels. And then if you want to have a look and just see how the label is sitting all around, we use the green arrow to rotate all the way around. There we go. You can just see one little white line there where it's joining, but that's pretty good. These axes will just change it. Just tilt your pack to the right and to the left, forwards and backwards. But we want to have our pack standing upright. I want to get this lid color the same as my label. So if we go to lid material, just click on that, and then you'll see eyedropper tool. Select that, and I'm just going to select a color on. There we go, and I'll apply it to my lid. I think that's pretty good. I might want to just add a little bit more lighting there just to make my pack a little bit brighter. So I'm just going to add a little bit more sunlight. If you want to check what your pack is looking like, go to your render, click on that, and it'll give you a little thumbnail render. So it just gives you some idea what the final image will look like once it's rendered, because it does take some time to render your image. It could take a few minutes for low and fast. For a slow and better resolution, it could take 20 minutes. So you just want to get some idea of what your image is looking like. You can also render much bigger so you can see your image. One thing to note, if you apply a material in your scene and it doesn't display correctly as you're mocking it up, it could be it's just too complex for your computer and it's too much to think about, and so it renders the materials a little bit grainy. This rendering preview will allow you to see it more in a finished state. You get the idea of what we need to do there. So over here, this is not exactly how it will look. It will look more refined and a better resolution. Now I'm just going to move my pack across just a little bit. First, select my square bottle, and I'm just going to move it a little bit across. I want to duplicate this bottle, so I'm just going to change the name to Square Bottle Almond, so I know which one it is. Now to duplicate it, I can just hold on Alt Option and I get the double arrow and I can drag it across, or just with it selected in the scene, I can go Command D to duplicate, and you'll see it will duplicate my bottle. I can then just move it across. There we go. So I have another almond bottle, and I will call that, I'll put the pink one in the middle, so I'll just call that berry. So all I need to do now is replace my decal, and if I just simply dragged it into that bottle, it will tell me that only one decal is allowed. So I go OK, and it will replace. So I know I scaled it up about 2, so I'm just going to scale that label up until in my scale it tells me I'm sitting on 2. And then I can just move that label, spin it around, move it down. There you go. And then I want to change my lid material. So if I click on lid material, click on that, get my eyedropper, Click on my pack to get the pink. Perfect. And there we have our second bottle. Again, I'm just going to Command D to duplicate. But I've just noticed that it's sitting below my Y. So you can see it's sinking down below the wood. So again, just double click, check those details, and make sure that your Y is sitting on 0. I'm going to duplicate that one too. And move it across. I'll click on that, and that will be our banana. And drag and drop it in. Yes, I want to replace it. Same thing, just scaling it up and changing the lid color. And just moving my label around so it's sitting nicely on my bottle. Go to my banana bottle, find my lid material, click on the base color, eyedropper tool, select the yellow, perfect, and press enter and return. So I can have a look at all 3 bottles and change the rotation of all 3. So just selecting, holding down shift, I can select all 3 bottles at once. Oh wait, it's got the one selected. I want to select all 3. There we go. Change your angles. I think that will do. And you might want to push some of the packs back a little bit. So maybe the 2 on the side will just push them back a little bit. Great. And then I'm just going to check my render, make sure I'm happy. And once you're happy, then we can start to go into our final render, where I'll show you the options. Okay. So you can play around with your lighting. So much fun. You'll waste plenty of time trying all the different options. But let's get onto our render. So I'll just go render. So your render options here are low, fast, high, slow, or medium. So obviously the low fast will be quicker. PSD file, 16-bit, 22-bit, or a PNG. So I'm going to opt for a 16-bit. I'll do high and slow and render it, and then we'll take note of how long it takes. Obviously, you won't be watching this video while it is rendering, but it'll be interesting to note how long it takes. So if I press over here, it'll give me option to change the name. So we'll call this packs, and I'll save it in my decks. There you go, final packs times 3, and it will give me a PSD file. So we'll go save, and then we're ready to press render. So I'll press render, and then I'll see you back in decks, ready to do some other packs. Or you'll just note that it will give me a quick render of what the scene will look like. So you have the option, once it gives you a quick render, just to take a screenshot of it if you like, or if you decide this is not what you want, you can cancel your rendering at any time. So it will give me a quick render and a percentage. This won't take too long. And once I have that, I can do a screenshot and maybe just show my client if there's an urgent rush, but that will be a low resolution. And then you can just wait for your high resolution Photoshop file. So I'll see you at the end of this. Great, so once your packs have rendered out, you can open them up in Photoshop and they'll look something like this. So you'll see how beautiful and realistic they look. You'll also notice that you get some extra additional layers. You will get your packs on a separate layer and your background separate. And then you'll also get material selection, which looks like that. So you can select, using your quick selection tool, various areas of the pack. And you can perhaps change the color of the lid, for example. So that is to select the materials. Object selection tool, mask, is to mask different objects in the scene. And then you get the depth information, which is a grayscale mask that can be used with a lens blur filter. But I'll show you quickly how to use the object selection tool. So I could select my lid, hold on my shift key and just select, let me just deselect that, start again, select my bottle, switch that off, go to my rendered image, and I can delete that bottle out of my scene. You will have to use your eraser tool just to get rid of some of that drop shadow and maybe do some magic here just to soften the drop shadow right next to the bottle. But you can see how you can perhaps present different mockups without going back into Adobe Dimension. So let's go back into Adobe Dimension and we can have a look. There is our scene. I'm going to show you how to do some of the other more conceptual work that we did, where I showed you the berry one just floating in the sea of pink. So I'm going to switch off my banana in the environment. So I can keep that pack in my scene, but just switch it off. So I can come back to it and switch it off. And then with my berry selected, I can start to manipulate it. I want to delete this image from my environment. So just click on the image and then press the bin and you will be able to deselect it. I want to change this background color to be something like my label color, maybe a little bit softer, and press return. And then with your berry selected, we're just going to rotate that whole pack so that it starts to look like it's sinking into the background, into the plane, should I say. So if you ever want to go back to the pack standing upright, you just get your rotation back to 0 on all 3 and it'll be standing upright. So as I manipulate it, I might want to always return to what it was before, so you can see how you can make it sink down. There we go. Then I also want to take the lid off, so you can actually click on that little eye and it'll remove the lid, and then we're going to remove the safety ring too, and then you can change your angle too so you can really see what you're doing with your pack. So I might want to lift this pack a little bit higher, move it across. I'm going to rotate it a little bit more so that it looks a little bit more even, and then maybe change my scene, how I view it, using my dolly tool and then my rotate tool. Rotate my pack again. So it's kind of pointing out into the distance. Straighten it up a little bit. And I think I want to just see a little bit more from the top. There we go. Maybe drop it down a little bit more. I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer. There we go. So once you're happy with your pack, you can select it and then just duplicate it. So I'll have a bottle at exactly the same angle, submerged in exactly the same way, and then I can just move it. So I can move it like that, just to stagger it a little bit, and duplicate that one again. And move it out further into the distance. And there you go. And then you can really manipulate your view of this scene too, and maybe save different views. If I like this view, I can go to my bookmark, add a new view and say top front and save that. I can make that my default view just by moving the little house down to my top front. Perhaps I can explore some other views. Coming in closer, rotating a little bit more, moving the scene across. I like that one, so I'm going to add it as top left, And then I can always go back to a saved view, so to front, or go back to top left. Brilliant. So we could save that one. We'll do a save as file, save as, and we'll do it coconut milk pink. And then to do all 3 packs floating up in space, we'll just delete 2 of these packs. So we have all 3 again. I'm going to switch these 2 back on. So you can see they're standing upright. If I select my banana, you can see it's on 0, 0, 0. So if I want to start with my berry back upright, I can go 0, 0, 0. And I'll have it standing upright. Select all of them. And then, I don't think my berry is standing upright. No, it's not. There we go. Seems to want to be rotated. Anyway, we will rotate it now. Bring it back up. There we go. We're going to put our lid back on. So you can see some interesting things do happen. When you move things around, they seem to intersect. So now we really want to lift these packs off the ground and rotate them. I'm going to change my view a little bit. There we go. And then I'm going to start to lift these packs off the ground so they look like they're floating. There you go. And rotate them. Grab my almond. Maybe rotate it. Contrasting angle. And lift it up a little bit higher. Move it to the side. And grab my berry. Move it up. And rotate it. If I want to see all of them, select all 3 holding down shift and then click to fit into your scene. And there's my berry. So just rotating it, moving it. It's moving it further into the distance. So you can create some really interesting things this way. If you want to see your pack lying flat on the ground, I'll just switch off my berry, switch off my almond, grab my banana, and I'm just going to set it up, rotating it, and then moving my view so I can see what's happening. I'm going to rotate my actual pack so that the front is facing upwards and rotate it so it's lying flatter on the ground. I'll set my Y to 0 and it'll sink it down a little bit, and then I'm just going to move it up, rotate it, and then I'm going to change my view so that I can see this pack from the top. Maybe just angle it slightly, come in closer, set it to view is to fit my selection into my view. Then I can change the background color too. Just go to environment, click on the color, and then perhaps I want the color of the banana in my background. Maybe make it a little bit lighter. Okay. Look at your sunlight, hard effects. If you want the pack to look a little bit more dull, you can move up your cloudiness. Change the rotation of the sun so you can start to see the drop shadow happening. Extend the height of the sun to make the shadow shorter. And then work on the opacity of that shadow by just moving this up and backwards and forwards on the ground plane, the shadow opacity. Great. And then once you're happy, you can save your scene over here or do a save as file, save as yellow. And so with the same file and just doing save as and hiding different elements within the scene, you can create different images for your mockups. So that's all from Dex for today. I hope you've had fun with Dimension. Feel free to explore and create your own packs, adding some decals to your packs. Just to mention that you can actually add decals in different ways. So if you have your bottle selected, you can go under actions, and there are various actions over here. So you can duplicate things here. And you can also just click over here and place your graphic as a decal. So if you have a JPEG, say for example, you can click on there and you can load up an image or a logo that you want to add, or a background design that you can add to your design. You can also just add images to your background. I'll show you that quickly. So if you have your background selected and you have an image in your library, you can just drag and drop an image into your background. So perhaps you create a pattern in Illustrator, and there we go. So it's saving it into my background, and you can just have that as another option. I won't match the image because it will cast quite strong yellow lighting on my packs. I want to keep it nice and clean. So I will go cancel. Perfect. There we go. So have fun with this one. Look forward to seeing what you come up with. That's all from Dex for today. Goodbye.